Thank you, Steve. Look forward to reading your new book. May I add one little point? Germany is the largest producer of solar energy in the world, from my understanding. Yet, if you have ever been to Germany in the wintertime, the sun doesn't shine after 3 p.m. When is the biggest demand for electricity in Germany? The wintertime, in the late afternoon and early evening when the sun doesn't shine. Figure that one out. Our next speaker is Charles Battig. He began his professional career as an electrical engineering in biomedicine, supporting the Apollo program. Later he became a medical doctor in anesthesiology. After retiring, he went to the Cathedral of Liberalism in Charlottesville, Virginia, at the location of the University of Virginia. Dr. Fred Singer was there, and followed later by a dramatic change in faculty, Dr. Michael Mann. After retiring to Charlottesville, Charles became involved in climate and energy issues. He succeeded in convincing the county, in this bastion of liberalism, climatism, to drop its membership in the UN ICCC7 program and stop participating in what is called the Cool Counties Resolution. Charles is the president of the Virginia Scientists and Engineers for Energy and Environment. He's the chapter president of that organization, Virginia C. He speaks to groups in Virginia on how to defend their localities against extreme measures invoked by those who state that we are in grave danger of climate change. Charles.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you all. And thank you to Heartland. Thank you to Joe Bass, which I wish he was here, because I've been pestering him for years about providing a niche for this topic of mine, of bringing the science and the information we hear here in great detail down back home, down not only to the citizens, but to the local politicians who are actually writing the laws for your daily life. So thank you. Now, yesterday, Lord Monckton did a great job, as he always does, erudite presentations going back to the ancient Greek civilization for logic. I live in the Albemarle County area surrounding Charlottesville. We're down in the south. So my first ode will be to an American icon, Cool Hand Luke, a great movie from '67. A famous line in there by Cool Hand Luke, but there's another one by the captain. What we've got here is a failure to communicate. Some men you just can't reach. Doesn't that apply to a lot of what we've been hearing and trying to do? We've been hearing of science, and we want apolitical science. Fred Singer, who organized the group to which I belong, made this hopefully a apolitical entity. We deal with facts. But we have to fudge a little bit. Apolitical science. Well, a noble goal for scientists, but noble scientists have become an endangered species. Applied science, I knew that from the engineering days, but it's now become science applied towards political influence. Political activists and advocacy groups have hijacked traditional scientific discourse. So I'm going to jump fast forward. I hope I don't run the clock out here. But these are my goals in 2010 in Albemarle County, where they had signed up in 2007 for the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, ICLEI. That was a creation back in 1990. It foresaw the formation and the 1992 Rio Conference taking place again next month, 20 years fast forward. And also then the other goal, might as well have two, persuade Albemarle County to rescind its 2007 Sierra Club Cool Counties resolution, reduce greenhouse gas emissions 80% by the year 2050, and then as a side product, illuminate a UN Agenda 21 policies in local government. Bridging science and public policy. All politics is local, a bottom-up approach, my approach. Recognize that the local governing board is charged with the approval of the local comprehensive plan and building codes. It doesn't get much closer to your daily life than that. Recognize that this is where climate issues move from theory to local regulations. Recognize that environmental advocacy groups are working to influence such plans. They're there at every meeting, I can tell you firsthand. So, going back on my library, things which I never thought I would use in this, mostly a psychological and mental preparation rather than a scientific one. 1957, the Battle for the Mind, the time of the Korean War, Manchurian Candidate movie. Mind control has always been a fantasy. One thing that works very well is mental fatigue. Wear the other guys out. Working in the Apollo era, I have a sort of vested interest in space travel and aliens and all that good stuff. But cognitive dissonance. Here, Leon Festinger wrote this book, When Prophecy Fails. What do you do when you meet up with a group who believes in something very firmly, but it turns out for them it doesn't happen? The aliens didn't come on March the 1st as predicted. What happens then? So he studied the psychology of this group. The last line there is a goal. I'm not sure how well I can put it into place, but you try to give the other side a graceful way out. A role model here, he's somebody whose class I would have given a lot to been in during those days of my education. But he was such a likable guy, multi-talented. He was such a cut-up, he could get away with it, picking locks there in Los Alamos, just for the fun of it, because he was so darn smart. But he was a very human person. He wrote 2 books about his own life in great detail. Surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman. And, of course, we heard about the cargo culture and so on. I picked up the part, the outrageous and outspoken. I thought that at least I could match that. Julian Simon, mentioned the other day, ultimate resource, but he wrote this almost like a monograph, a short book, shortly before he died. And he had the term in there, false bad news. And Julian had spent his lifetime being right most of the time, winning all his bets, debunking these various things. But he really agonized, well, I've done all this, I've been right, but why don't the people believe me, or at least why doesn't the press acknowledge it? So there's false bad news out there. So he had this feedback loop. Somebody writes something in the paper about something sounds bad. Public gets frightened. Polls show the public to be frightened. You always need a poll. This worry is then support for the politicians to do something, and the fact that they do something reinforces the fact that there was something to worry about, and reuse often as you need to control the public. So Julian's observation, predisposition in human nature to accept uncritically bad news. Bad news always wins. If it bleeds, it leads. And the hoodwinkers and all the other characters named there all know that very well. So the venue, Charlottesville, Albemarle County, Virginia, home of Thomas Jefferson, home of UVA, former home of Professor, academic home of Professor Singer, former home of Professor Pat Michaels, former home, rumored possible future home of Michael Mann. Dennis Avery lives to the west of me up in the valley there, and Chris Horner, who's speaking up in apparently successful competition with me and us on the other panel upstairs, lives on the other side of town. But we have a very, very active Sierra Club, Nature Conservancy, Southern Environmental Law chapters, and it was one of the stops in 2008 for Governor Keene's Climate Change Commission. So we do have a democratic process I came aware of. There are 2 meetings a month for the Board of Supervisors, 2 public meetings, and during each of those 2 meetings, one at 9, one at 6 in sequential weeks, the public gets 2 to 3 minutes on any topic they want to talk about before the formal agenda. I said, aha, I have an audience, because I was a nobody. I didn't know anybody at UVA, I had no publicity, knew nobody in town, but hey, I'm solved part of the problem. You need an audience. You can be right as right, but nobody hears it. It's the tree in the forest thing. So, items not on the agenda. So I decided to show up twice a month, apparently indefinitely, and engage in the Death of a Thousand Cuts presentation process. They have to listen to me, and I'm going to show up and keep doing it. I'm an activist. I have to do my homework, factual, polite, focused soundbite presentations, which we all abhor, but you have to remember the audience of the Board of Supervisors. I'm not there to lecture them. I'm there to change their mind. I'm there to inform them. Must not be discouraged, and you can see I have a sense of humor and tend to enjoy this. One realization that back in 2007, when these various programs were instituted by the board, nobody from the public at that time had challenged that. There was nothing but good things to say about the ICLEI and cool counties. PowerPoint presentations, which obviously I'm wedded to. I want to use original source data. I don't want to have my opinion talking. I want the opinion of others, preferably the opinion of others that the county has favored, saying things against their group, which I will illustrate. And of course, I need support. The message, public policy made on the basis of incorrect or incomplete climate science is bad public policy. Climate science is not settled science, and very importantly, county or city staff, and we say the same thing in our federal government, the staff may be the source of an environmental activist groupthink. And some wag has called this a staff infection. That in my medical hat would mean something else, but this is a staff infected with environmentalism. I needed a wider audience, so I've become fairly proficient in writing letters here and there, quite a few letters in the Wall Street Journal. The one, I think, last month, I will illustrate further on. Barron's, the local press, papers over in Richmond, and so on and so forth. You have to self-advertise yourself. I managed to get a PBS interview, and I specifically, when I call out, as was mentioned earlier, I'm running the clock, I know, the local talk show host. Our local host is Rob Schilling. He has the Schilling Show. He's given me 1 hour a month for the past year. I'll be on Friday speaking noontime. The Jefferson Area Tea Party, very active, and they took on these two goals of mine as their goals for the last year. And I just got myself invited to many social and men's clubs, ladies' clubs, and anything else that would listen to me, the health club, with my story. My Feynman moment, surely you're joking. What UN? This is from the Board of Supervisors. I knew this was coming. Tea Party conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. There it all goes down. I knew that was coming. Now, what I'm going to show here in sort of flashcard manner are some slides. My mode has been about 10 or 15 PowerPoint slides bundled together with the title slide of the day, and I've done that about 20 times. So I've got a library of about 300 or so of individual slides bundled in these presentations. I've just selected a few here. Here's one from May 2nd. The good news. I want to bring good news there versus the bad news bears from the University of UVA showing up there. UVA props have shown up. I'm a skeptic, so I was very glad to have somebody say something good about me or us. Skepticism is the first step to truth. Can't beat that. That shows up every time on my title slide. Here are the ICLEI dropouts. There was probably only 1 or 2 of these last year. Carroll County, Maryland. You know, Maryland is not the most favorite place for conservatives, but Commissioner Richard Rothschild was successful in getting his county out. We were soon after with his help, and I just enjoy somewhat the sinful pleasure of showing this list growing to the Board of Supervisors each time, irritating the ones who had voted to keep it in. Here's as an example one of the slides. The IPCC spokesman, here, Working Group 3, we redistribute the fact of the world's wealth by climate policy, blah, blah, blah. This has almost nothing to do with environmental policy anymore. I take his words and show it what the IPCC is saying. It doesn't get better than that. James Lovelock, you heard lots, but this is the slide when I showed to the Board of Supervisors. You all knew about it. I can guarantee you none of the Board of Supervisors or people reading the local press knew about it. So there's one of the slides. Here are the man-eating polar bears, which everybody seems to like so much. A UVA professor from the Department of Environmental Sciences, I mentioned this to Fred, this lady came down, had her 3 minutes, and started worrying about polar bears, sea level rises, etc., the usual list, and her allocated 3 minutes. I showed up with this slide. Oh, Here's something from Canada. Here's something from the indigenous people. Here are the people that live there. They have their own scientists. This says a bunch of baloney. He's complaining that the Canadians in Ottawa say we've got a problem. We've never had so many polar bears. Here, once again, the Nature Conservancy, very active in Charlottesville, Albemarle, but here's a conversation quoted. In any event, their president and vice president and chief scientists basically jumped down here. Well, he's got in there, living in the past, he used the word lying, horror story, and he says it's not supported by science. You've got the other guy to do your arguments, you're ahead. This slide here you've seen many times. I just put the twist on there. Well, it looks like to me, Board of Supervisor members, CO2 is causing the temperature to drop. CO2 is going up, temperature is dropping. Isn't that what the science says? Planet under pressure, well, we have other issues going on in Charlottesville, all wrapped around in Agenda 21, environmentalism, sustainability, biodiversity. But here is a recent conference in London. 1 minute, all right. Using their words once again. We don't want the humans messing up the countryside. Here's good news. You've seen this already. I'll jump this along, but I present it to them as good news. A guide. The American Planning Association, bad news. They're all over. They've trained your planners. They've got their own planning guide for climate issues, even revised. They've got their eye on them. Here, I'd like to read this if I can run the clock out. I only have about 4 or 5 slides more. But this is a planning commission. This is one of their groups. It's called the Planners Network. Maybe they don't all belong to it. But if you do belong to it, here. We believe that planning should be a tool for allocating resources and developing the environment to eliminate the great inequalities of wealth and power in our society, rather than to maintain and justify the status quo. We are committed to opposing racial, economic, environmental injustice and discrimination by gender and sexual orientation. We believe that planning should be used to assure adequate food, clothing, housing, medical care, jobs, safe working conditions, and a healthful environment. We advocate public responsibility for meeting these needs because the private market has proved incapable of doing so. Karl Marx couldn't have said it better. I'm going to run these through because I've got 4 slides. The success story, June 8th, 2011, there was a meeting such as your activists outside, 200 or so in our auditorium down there, chanting, yelling, screaming. We had our Tea Party people there. I was safely at the Competitive Enterprise Anniversary Dinner. There was a fortitude vote to drop ICLEI. And why? Our side did a good job with logic. The other side just made a lot of noise. Second success, in September, we dropped the cool counties. Why? We had convinced the Board of Supervisors that they could do their own environmental regulations without the Sierra Club. Conclusions. Local political engagement is key to having scientific information for meetings such as this one make a direct and effective local impact. Presenting the missing side of scientific debate on climate issues to the local public and politicians can obviously influence the whole chain of command. Many local politicians have never been openly challenged on these issues, and this is a continuing process. Sustainability and biodiversity are out there waiting for us. I have an online library of all the stuff I've done. It's posted. It's not a blogging site if you're curious. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Charlie.